Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2024 Payoff Debt Tournament Winners Round 2, Curtis versus Max. So we're going to get started. Oops, sorry. We're going to get started in a second here as soon as these ads are finished. But yeah, we should be good to start pretty much any time. Oh, Curtis, you've got a... Yeah. On commentary today, it's just me, Kemi. Nobody else was available, but that's how it goes sometimes, so hopefully I don't bore you to death. Right. Let's get started then in 3, 2, 1, go. Good luck. All right, so our runners are getting started here. While they both load in, looks like not that much stream delay between the two of them, thankfully, so this is going to be a nice, pleasant watching experience, assuming we don't get completely owned by ads. And yeah, this is looking to be a very exciting race today, since Curtis and Max, I would say, are fairly similar in terms of their overall skill level. They definitely sit sort of within the same bracket of runners. Of course, Curtis has been running the game a lot more actively lately compared to Max, who I believe has just had sort of life sneak up on him in a lot of ways. He's been pretty busy. But nonetheless, this could still end up being quite close, one of our closest races so far. Both of our runners just getting one single Pikmin for day 1 extinction. That's always what you want to see. It's so much easier to do this trick that way. So much less error prone as well. Of course, it's possible with up to 4, I believe. I've never personally done it with 5, but at least in one cycle, one go. Yeah, I would say Curtis is the favorite, just by virtue of being sort of warmer on the run. Right, so both of our runners still fairly even here. Again, I haven't heard whether any of them have sort of gentleman's agreement decided not to do Louis skip or to go for Louis skip, so that could be a pretty major swing depending on whether either of them go for it and or get it. Looks like Curtis got some slightly better pellet positions here. Oh no, actually Max actually got slightly, wait. I forget if Curtis or Max was ahead before on the thing. It looked to my eye like Curtis got the better pellet positions, but I felt like Max pulled ahead slightly here. It's not a big deal either way, but this is one of the few sort of instances of RNG that can actually save or lose a good handful of seconds. Like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not super significant to the run, but because it's the first split, we tend to sort of hyper-optimize these things. Both of our runners getting the one shot on the Bulborb. Again, you love to see that. This sort of way of loading it with the C-Stick is a Max25 original. In fact, a lot of the sort of micro-optimizations that are really common in runs these days were sort of originated by Max in the last few years. And my own personal playstyle is quite influenced by Max. I've watched Max, I think, more than most other runners at this point. Probably second closest is or just closest is Jack. But I watched Max a lot back when I was learning this run, so big influence on me in particular. So neither of our runners went for Louis skip here. which I totally respect. It can be quite volatile in a race like this, especially when, I'm sure they both know that they're up against an opponent who is, who can put up a good fight. And if you're losing, 17 seconds early in the run, that could spell, honestly, a pretty serious disadvantage for the rest of the run. Max having a little bit of trouble with these pellets. It happens sometimes. Can't build because he goes live at cool hours. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people end up watching other runners kind of just based on when people go live in general. I live in the UK, so I end up watching Jack and Max most often. And conversely, it's really hard for me to watch Cap these days just because he is on the other side of the world, and the time zones make it very difficult. So still pretty close here. Curtis has pulled slightly ahead, I think just due to the pellet shenanigans that Max had to deal with. But again, not a big deal. Just listen to Cap in my sleep. I think I'd have nightmares, to be honest. Very slight difference here in the two runners' gameplay. Max chose to throw 2 Pikmin on the far 1 pellet straight away instead of sort of topping it up with 1 extra one after plucking a couple. And I think that's just a difference in he ended up having 7 in his party after one-shotting the first pellet instead of 6, which you normally have. It's quite common to leave one just sort of sitting there and not have 7 in your party. So in that case, you can't throw 2 because then you can't load the 5 pellet in time. But I do think if you end up getting that 7th Pikmin in your party, throwing the 2 straight away is very slightly faster, just because that far pellet is actually the limiting factor for when you can go to the bag. Or at least it should be if you're doing everything else fast enough. So getting that moving faster earlier is always good. Both of our runners going for egg push here. One of those interesting sort of stylistic differences that you can see between a lot of runners is what camera angle they choose to use for egg push. So Curtis looks down the slope, whereas Max looks up the slope. Personally, I believe in looking up the slope. Of course, it ultimately does not matter. But it looks sort of horrifying if you run this game and you see somebody do a different camera angle than you're used to. Just looks impossible to control. Nice single nectar from Curtis. And 2 that are not up against the wall for Max. That's going to be a little bit harder to deal with. Ooh, yeah, and he's going to end up with a good bunch of leaves here. That looks like 2 to 4. Or maybe 5. Yeah, that's 5 leaves, I think. So that's going to slow him down a little bit over the next couple of splits. Maybe a handful of seconds in total. It's not really a big deal, but it's going to extend Curtis's lead very slightly. No game sound? Can you not hear it? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, I didn't have the desktop audio enabled. So you should be hearing Curtis's audio right now. Yeah, no, sorry about that. I had some OBS issues before the stream. I had to sort of finagle with things for a little bit just to get the layout working properly. OBS is really good software, but it does seem to just have like a weirdly high number of spurious issues compared to most other things I use. I feel like recording software has sort of always been like that. But, it's still annoying whenever it happens. – So it looks like about 10 seconds difference between Curtis and Max. And that's one of those things that I think sort of being cold, being a little bit rusty on the run is going to do for Max is it's going to make him lose a lot more time on above ground splits like this that are fairly consistent normally. I know for me personally, whenever I like come back to this game after not running it for a little while, it's always the above ground splits that suffer the most. So both of our runners getting close citrus here, of course, because we're using the set seed code. Just in case anybody is unfamiliar, the set seed code means that our runners are going to be getting the exact same cave layouts everywhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll have all the same RNG calls. So an example of that is that their pellet posies in the above ground and Valley of Repose are in slightly different places, even though we're using that set seed code. But everything that relates to cave generation will be identical. So fairly clean EC1 from both of our runners. Again, this floor is, especially when you have close citrus, it's pretty hard to lose time on this floor. Oh yes, and I didn't see that, Sergeant. Jack is kind of a psycho for the sideways cam. It's just I don't know how you can do an egg push with sideways cam. It just seems impossible. So this globe carry is probably going to be one of those things that ends up losing Max a little bit of time here from having the leaves. It's really not that big of a deal in the next couple of splits, but this globe carry is like very much a limiting factor. And Max also not sort of doing the newly confirmed to be faster strat of throwing Pikmin in the far flower first. It's a very minor thing, of course, that doesn't really matter too much, but again, a very small instance of time loss. So Curtis plucking 8 here, or at least bringing 8 with him, which means he's going to be able to get both of these bugs, whereas Max only brought 7, I believe? Yes, so he's only going to be getting one of these bugs. Again, that's not really a huge deal. It's only 2 Pokos missed out on. And I think it is strictly faster to pluck only 7. But yeah, it's sort of the sum of small things like this that differentiates runners a lot of the time. Like you can pretty commonly watch 2 runners play, you know, caves side by side in a set seed context like this, and see that, you know, they're both playing pretty nearly the same, you know, leaving each floor at maybe only a second or 2 apart from each other, but that second or 2 multiplied over like something like 60 sublevels that we play in this run is, you know, a minute or 2 minutes, right? So that's sort of where the difference comes from, and that's sort of what this game is about once you get into the higher levels. And don't get me wrong, both of these runners are definitely high-level runners. Not quite tippy-top, but like they're good runners, you know. They're beyond the point at which, you know, there's easy time save left to be gained by just sort of not making mistakes. Ooh, Curtis doing the first frame enter into Awakening Wood. This is obscure nonsense, but I'm alone on commentary. Nobody can stop me from mentioning stuff like this. If you enter Awakening Wood for this first time, on the very first frame that you can do that, oh, Max does it too, the ship sort of does an extra spiral like that, and it takes, I think, just shy of a second longer to enter the area. So you definitely don't want to do that, which is in contrast to re-entering Valley of Repose on the first frame, which actually saves 1 second because the ship does 1 fewer cycle like that. Again, really tiny thing, but they add up, right? You know, all of these things I've mentioned so far, if you did all of them the right way, then you would be, you know, 5 to 6 seconds faster, which, you know, is suddenly not so trivial an amount of time. Curtis getting unlucky with the pellets here. Ideally, you want everything to be picked up automatically by the Pikmin, you know, just on their own without your intervention, but, you know, sometimes you do just have to go and adjust afterwards. Oh, and Curtis is choosing to use leaves to speed up those remaining pellets. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. But I've been kind of the philosophy lately that those sort of far 2 pellets can pretty easily become like a limiting factor in this split. Just because almost always the thing that sort of limits you from going back to the gate with sort of the final round of Pikmin is plucking those last sprouts. So maybe speeding those up is actually good. I haven't really fully tested it yet, though. Weird that first fermenter. Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. It's something like, you know, they've basically tied the actual sort of loading trigger to when the ship gets close enough, I guess, to the sort of point on the map. Like, they tied it to the animation as opposed to just having like a timer for after you select yes, which is definitely a weird way of doing it, but you know, video game programming is full of little hacks and shortcuts. It is how it is. So Max is doing Mercy Snow's strat on the gate here, whereas I don't believe Curtis did it. What this strat is you try to get all of your leaf Pikmin on the left side of the gate so that while the gate is coming down, you can sort of whistle all the leaves off and nectar them while you still have your flower Pikmin working on the gate. And the idea here is that you can sort of multitask doing the nectar and having Pikmin working on the gate. Personally, I don't actually think this is faster after sort of doing a lot of experimentation with it. Just because the limiting factor in this split, like once the gate comes down, isn't your Pikmin anymore. It's your captain getting to the to Hole of Beast to actually enter the cave. So having your Pikmin free from the gate sooner, I think, is not really important necessarily. This might actually be different in All Treasures when you have to go and flatten the bag afterwards, but I haven't tested this in All Treasures yet. One way or another, it's not really a big gain or loss either way. So it definitely feels like the lead has widened. Curtis's lead has widened very slightly since entering Awakening Wood. I wouldn't really be able to point to where that happened. It's just, you know, the sum of a lot of small things. So this treasure that Curtis is getting right here, this is a Mahjong tile. The 7-pin. I kind of wonder if the name Strife Monolith is supposed to be sort of a reference to actually playing the game of Mahjong. Reach Mahjong, anyway. Because seven numeral tiles of all the suits can be quite risky tiles to discard in this game. I'm not really going to go into it, but they're kind of like linchpin tiles, you know, 3s, 7s, 5s. The sort of middle tiles are quite risky at points in the game. So maybe this is the Strife that they're referring to. Who knows? All right. It's looking like a pretty good layout on this Hub 4. Anytime that you see the Bulborb like in the room like this, it's usually pretty good because it's very frequently the case that the Bulborb body and the treasure that it's carrying are sort of limiting on the floor. And so whenever they're like really close to the ship like that, it means you don't really have to pay attention to the loads that much. You don't have to do anything weird like luring it or killing it first. You can kind of just min load it. Usually you can go and get the mitites afterwards. It's just usually much better that way, and it conversely almost doesn't really matter that much how far away the card is when you have the Bulborb this close to the ship, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it sort of just ends up being like that after, you know, playing this layout hundreds of times. So Curtis definitely could have used to speed up the Bulborb body slightly more, because he ended up waiting on that for quite a while at the end of it. Whereas Max prioritized the Bulborb body a bit more, so he's going to be multitasking that with the lockout. And Max is also quite a bit higher on bugs, I think. No, he's about the same. Sorry. Curtis going for Fast Empress? Oh wait, no, he went for the safe strat, I think. Oh, and that is one death from Curtis. It's just a red though, so that's not a big deal. And Max is going for Fast Empress. And he gets it. Ooh. This doesn't quite propel him into the lead, but it brings him a lot closer than he was before. So far, about 20 minutes in, I'm very happy with how close this race has stayed. You know, the runners being within, I would say, about 15-20 seconds of each other the entire time so far has been excellent to watch. It's always nice to see, you know, both of them being on the same floor throughout the whole race. At least for most of each floor. Because then you can do sort of a side-by-side comparison much, much easier. So yeah, the gap right now is only about probably less than 10 seconds, maybe 7 or 8 seconds. And Max is still up 1 Pikmin, actually, so that might buy him a little bit of extra time over the next few splits, assuming he is able to maintain the current sort of pace. Or at least match Curtis's pace going forwards. It'll come in clutch, definitely. Something very bizarre happened to me on this floor recently. I had the treasure on this floor kind of get stuck on that little nub in the middle of the hallway right there. Never ever seen that before. Never seen it happen to anyone else. But I think I just deloaded it at the wrong time and it actually got stuck and stopped moving and lost like 10 seconds. And that was in my PB, so you can actually see that if you're super interested in it. The physics in this game are so much weirder than I think anybody really understands. Like, I'm pretty sure the treasure hitboxes are supposed to be spheres? Or like weird spheres? So you wouldn't think they could really get stuck on anything like that, especially not from tilting the wrong way, but evidently they can. Yeah, Nubtub, pretty much all of the geometry you see on the floors in cave units, especially on these metal units, but also pretty noticeable in the snow units. It's fully modeled, has full collision. And this is kind of the reason why it's for or sometimes so hard to one-shot or to down snitch bugs on like FC4, for example, is because sometimes if they're floating above a bit of raised collision and you're on a slightly lower one, then you just don't throw the purples high enough to even reach them in the first place. Every non-map object has spherical collision. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some weirdness going on with you know, treasures tilting and sort of getting stuck on things. This also sort of happens with the glove in White Flower Garden. 5, sorry. Where sometimes it can sort of clip into the floor if you deload it at the wrong time. Pretty clean White Flower Garden 2 from both of our runners. Max ended up getting extra bugs there. He waited like a second or two for them. Honestly, I respect that. Fairly worth it to wait for like 1 second to get those 4 extra Pokos. Especially in a race context where you can't really, you know, you sort of need to make sure that you can finish the run comfortably. This floor has a surprising amount of variance just from how the white seeds sort of distribute themselves. If you get seeds that are really slow to pluck 10 of beforehand, then it really slows down the dig here. I believe Max only plucked 8. Or a 9th, but it didn't come with him before loading this, whereas normally we want to pluck 10. So his initial dig was a little bit slower before he could whistle the whites on and get the rest of his squad on there. And of course that means he has to pluck more afterwards at this point, so he's going to be swapping whites onto this treasure a little bit later. It just has a lot of knock-on effects when the sprouts are bad. It's kind of compound time loss. Oh, Max getting 2, almost 3 purples on the beam. Very, very impressive. I didn't see how much, or how many Pikmin Curtis got up there. Looks like a pretty average White Flower Garden 4. Of course, if anybody's unfamiliar, you have to be pretty careful on this floor because if you trigger the poison cutscene, that is a problem later on. Oh, Curtis needs to... Yep. Oh, no. One more on there. And he manages to whistle just the one. But yeah, if you trigger the poison cutscene here, you need to reset. Because you need that poison cutscene for early blues in a minute or two. Curtis got 1 white up there. In the business, we usually refer to that as a bad beam horoscope. Not very auspicious. Yeah, that dismiss, it's pretty consistent going for that dismiss. But I think Curtis probably just didn't C-stick his squad in the right way to sort of make it work. But that has kind of evened the two of them out. There's only like a handful of seconds between our 2 runners at this point. Curtis gets the slow get up and an ad. Thanks. Whereas Max gets the slightly faster get up. So a little peek into how the sausage is made here. I mean, if you follow these runners on Twitch, which, you know, you should go and do because they are excellent runners. But you can see that they're streaming right now. We don't actually use like Discord streams or anything like that to sort of restream here. We just let the runners stream on Twitch and then sort of capture that gameplay using browser sources in OBS. When you are a big event like GDQ or ESA or something like that, you can get sort of private Twitch streams to sort of make it not appear as if you're online and just streaming yourself, and you can stream sort of directly to, or you can stream to Twitch in a way that only those event restreamers can see. for the sake of those events, but obviously as mere mortals, we don't have access to those features on Twitch. But unfortunately, that means that any streams that have ads normally, it's, you know, basically as if we're just watching it through a weird browser in OBS. Which is unfortunate, but that's how we gotta do it. Curtis getting this nap relatively quickly. When Max getting it first try. Curtis taking a really sus line there. Oh my god. Yeah, I think in that situation I would also choose to do the safe setup. Whereas Max, of course, goes for YOLO early blues, being one of the people who sort of popularized YOLO early blues in the first place. Yeah, our runners are pretty much identical, like, you know, 2 to 3 seconds, maybe a little bit more than that, but very, very close to each other, like within margin of error, right? Like, this is anybody's race at this point. Curtis getting third try blue knapsack. If Max gets first try, that puts them very close. No, one second try, so that closes the gap even further. Ooh, and Curtis had some extra credit happen. Extra credit is what I call it when the blue Pikmin sort of do your job for you a little bit. Just because they get sort of lured away from the onion by the tadpoles. And they can end up getting shaken off in the right places to do, you know, to basically attack the pellets on their own. Happens occasionally. Always very nice when it does, even though it doesn't really strictly save time. Sometimes it lets you get extra sprouts like this, though. Oh, Curtis choked second try. I didn't catch that. I'll tell you, being a solo commentator for this, it's not like it's hard, really, because, you know, I know the game super well, but actually trying to, like, pay attention and catch everything that happens on both streams at the same time is surprisingly difficult. It's really easy to miss stuff. So Curtis has mentioned a setup that he does for this Bulwarb, like to wake it up at the right point in the animation cycle. I don't know if he messed the setup up or what, but that seemed kind of slow. Maybe it was because he got blocked by the baronets, or not baronets, the shearubs. That's what they're called. Let's see what SH2 has in store. Not that good, but at least the spawn room is the right way around. Right. Yeah, unfortunately you kind of have to do this combat here. Otherwise, these two guys are going to kill a lot of Pikmin on their way back with the treasures here. The reason for that is basically because we have to keep the strawberry and stuff on camera as it crosses that bridge. Otherwise, it can sort of glitch into the water and you can lose Pikmin that way. But because you have to keep it on camera, you would also end up keeping the Bronet on camera, and so it would end up following the strawberry and potentially causing havoc. So this is definitely kind of an entourage of pain and suffering right by this white candy pop. I don't think I've ever seen it really be this bad. Kind of a hard situation to deal with, having to sort of make sure your camera is in the right place, but also sort of punch this guy. And or make sure that he doesn't get in your way for some other reason. Looks like both of our runners were able to deal with it pretty well, though. Both of them collecting the strawberry right about the same time. I think Max was slightly behind, slightly more behind into this floor, but I think he had a slightly better load on the strawberry, so ended up getting a little bit of that time back. It really goes to show with, especially floors that are so big like this, getting a really good load on the treasures is super, super important. Like, missing, you know, 1 or 2 whites on the strawberry is potentially the difference of, like, you know, 3 to 4 seconds, just because their speed is sort of multiplied over the amount of time that the treasure gets carried. Curtis is wienering us. I didn't really expect any less. Yeah, so there's that. I'm very sorry to expose all of you to this. I know there are children watching. No, Nuptab, Max did not wiener us. Ooh, that's kind of a rough position for the beetle there. Curtis just throwing on it the old way. The old school sort of way, at least. Ooh, having a little bit of trouble with this, at least. I really like what Max is doing with the marble here, just taking only whites to it, deloading everything. Doesn't have to deal with the blowhogs at all in this situation. Max definitely played this floor a lot cleaner, I think. Yeah, when you have this many whites on the marble, it just goes right past everything. And I believe Max also got the bug here because of how he dealt with the beetle combat. Yep, Max is now very slightly in the lead. 13 pogo difference. Yes, good spot. 9. But people are just throwing numbers into the chat at this point. He's up by some amount of pokos. Let's swap the audio over. So this is definitely what you want to see on this 5. Never mind. There are only 5 of these bulborbs on SH5 that sort of spawn in the room like this. So if you see 2 of them sort of straight out of the gate like this, you have pretty good odds of getting the marble close. Oh, Max, come on. You gotta realize where this is. Good. Yeah, I'm glad both of our runners were able to see that right away. So I think Curtis is sort of, technically speaking, pulled ahead slightly here. I'm not going to keep switching the audio every single time, just because that's going to get insanely tedious. But yeah, I mean, they're both basically neck and neck at this point. Like, this is about as close as you can realistically be. Again, absolutely love to see this. This is, like, the most exciting situation for a race. So let's see if we get any lenses, TSTs, extra white Pikmin from the candy pops. It looks like the candy pop is gated. So yeah, probably no extra whites here. Both of our runners choosing to kill this guy, which is really interesting. I don't know if I would necessarily do that, but I do respect it. Ooh. They're both going to go for the lure here, as I think you should. But this is kind of a hard lure. Curtis manages to get it a lot faster. Nice, so that's going to be lens for both of our runners, with Curtis being a little bit faster on the uptake there. But of course, sort of manipulating the Bulborb AI can be quite challenging, because these situations are rare. You don't have a lot of practice sort of getting them out of the water like this. Max did exit sooner. Yeah, damn. Alright, I'll put Max's back on. It's just all in the details for this, seriously. Max is definitely in a better position right now, of course being slightly ahead, but also with so many more bugs. And this is also the ideal geyser position that you want to see on this floor. No gate, right next to you. This gives you basically free license to go and nectar your Pikmin in a slightly further away spot like this. We've kind of been realizing lately that nectaring in most situations, except in the geyser, is just like right here, actually kind of loses a lot of time. Especially if you have to go and if you have to run far to the geyser, and especially if it's gated. Which, you know, neither of these things are true in this situation, but... Well, no but. That's just how it is. Commentary is my passion. Oh, sorry, did Curtis get a stun? Ampilia did. Did he? No, I don't think he did. Because he's got, low Pikmin numbers. Unless he lost some somewhere else and I didn't catch it. Don't think white leaves are super detrimental. Oh yeah, white leaves are still quick, of course. But it definitely does save some time, because you have so many floors between now and SEX4, which is the next time you really can nectar them, that are sort of like bottlenecked on like raw carry power. I'm thinking like BK6, well, the Enter SCX, of course. SCX1 is actually quite bottlenecked on carry power, I've started to find. SCX3, of course. You know, there's a good handful of situations in which, you know, you're gaining like a good couple of seconds. Also, this split, the globe is very bottlenecked on carry power. It's still swallowed anyway, I see. Flower-on Beetle, yeah, that's sort of a new development, in case anybody is not familiar. Is using the Glint Beetle to flower your whites right before the bridge. I personally haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but it seems sort of good, hypothetically speaking, if you can beat the bridge by enough time to do it without sort of making the blues wait around for a while. Always very nice to see both of our runners getting the BK knapsacks first try. If you mess those up too much, it can spell like absolute disaster for this split. Max loading the strawberry a little bit late for comfort, but it's probably going to be fine. You just really don't want to start sort of overlapping the lockouts for these treasures, because then, you know, they can start to sort of pile up. I mean, if you're super prepared and they're piled up, you can start sort of running away. You know, because they all sort of quote unquote collect at the same time, and the Pikmin come off of them and they enter your party. And so that means you can sort of leave early and start making your way to BK sooner. But the way they overlap sometimes means that they don't actually come into your party fully. It's a little bit weird. Ooh, I actually really like what Curtis is doing there. Realizing that he doesn't actually need to wait for both of those to come in. He can just leave a purple on the strawberry, and that purple is going to go and grab Pilgrim Bulb right now. Collect it. This is something we've started doing in Valley of Repose as well, with the ring and a spiny alien treat. Ooh, this is rough. This looks like, yeah, this is worst possible layout on BK1. Of course, both of our runners are getting the same layout here, but this is just, this is one of those floors where the average case is like totally fine. The best case saves a surprising amount of time, and the worst case, which is this, loses a surprising amount of time. So in a PB attempt, getting a layout like this would basically mean just sort of randomly losing 10 seconds, 15 seconds compared to average, and like 20 to 25 seconds compared to best case. It's like really, really shocking. Also, yeah, Pi, that's a good point. They are pretty much dead even. But of course, that means that this race is very, very volatile right now. If one runner makes even sort of like a slight mistake, like a 15-second mistake at any point, that could potentially just mean the race for them. At that point, they either need to like really, really overtake, play aggressively to sort of make the time up, or, you know, hope their opponent makes a mistake, I suppose, is sort of the only thing you can do in that situation. Curtis very, very narrowly avoiding the fire cutscene, but Max also getting grabbed on his treasure there. So they've both made slight mistakes here, but they've canceled each other out, and they're both still pretty much the same as where they entered the floor. Oh, and Curtis is getting the fire cutscene. I jinxed it. That's unfortunate. Oh, Max also got the fire cutscene. Okay. But yeah, for the first time in a little while, Max is now ahead by maybe 5 seconds. Something like that. Like, just, again, a really trivial amount, but it's all we can sort of point to at the moment. Ooh, okay, Max making the gauge read. This is definitely a hard gauge read. Oh, and he left all of his Pikmin. Very good. Is he going to force the bug body? Well, he's loaded it, so it remains to be seen whether he's going to wait for it. Oh, very nearly went for a nectar in that alcove, but did not see the electric hazard until almost too late. That would have been a very embarrassing way to lose Pikmin. So I'm going to try and catch whether both of them get the bug body here. It's 7 Pokos, so it's fairly significant. Right, so Curtis got that as well as the anodes, I believe. Or I think that was just the 2 anodes. I don't think it was the frog. Whereas Max has left already. I did not catch whether Max got the bugs. If he did get the bugs, then he's in a really, really good position right now. But our runners do need to keep in mind that if they go too high on Pokos, then they're going to end up seeing an extra % cutscene later. The number we're looking for when they exit the cave is 50-54. if they have any more than that, then they're going to see an extra percent cutscene and lose 8 seconds, I think is the number. Max making the classic mistake here of aiming too perfectly on a dwarf bulborb. Purples, when you throw them, they always move to the side a certain amount. Ooh, Max is gonna have to fight this with, like, beats a white. It just ended up being 1 white, so it's still totally fine. This is a little bit of spaghetti though. So Curtis has not really had the same amount of spaghetti here. Curtis is definitely making his way to the treasure a little bit faster, but he didn't use his eyes especially well, and dragged a little bit on his way here. Max choosing to go for reds and whites, same as Curtis. And both of our runners going back to make sure that they can get some of these bugs, which is definitely the correct thing to do. So despite the spaghetti at the beginning, I think honestly they're still probably just about even. Ooh, I think both of our runners are significantly over where they need to be on Pokos at this point. 94, or can I do math? No, I think they're fine. I think neither of them is gonna get so they could skip the 70% cutscene if they skip the Emperor Bullblack's body. So let's see if either of them does that. Excuse me. Of course, sort of doing the math in your head in the middle of a run is not the easiest thing in the world. Don't even know if the runners are sort of paying attention to that. Again, it's sort of, it's not really a huge thing. It's interesting how much Curtis has pulled ahead here just from sort of getting Pikmin on the gate a little bit faster. I didn't really catch exactly what he did. Getting a little bit of spaghetti from Max. Not the end of the world. Ooh, throwing both of those on there is potentially weird. And now they're literally identical in terms of Pokos as well. This is the closest race I have ever seen. Like, this is actually unreal. Oh, Cap, rooting for Curtis. Just kidding. I have nothing against Curtis. I know Curtis is your son. So Curtis got the bug body and went over 50-54, so he's going to be seeing percent cutscene. Max also is going to be seeing percent cutscene. I don't disagree with this, to be honest. The 15 Pokos is just a lot, and you kind of have to go hard on bugs if you skip the 70% cutscene, like after FC, which is kind of hard to do. Like, COS and GK are not easy caves to go hard on bugs in, so I totally respect just taking it. Hey, Jack. Dude, Cap, if you want to surprise guest star, like, feel free to just, like, hop in the channel. My voice is getting kind of tired. I think JPEG. So if I was doing like really ultra serious PB attempts, I think I would skip it if I realized. But in a race context, I think it doesn't make sense to do it just because again, like you need to go hard on bugs after FC if you do the skip. And it also means you kind of need to be paying attention to the bugs you're getting in SCX. Um, just to make sure you're not going over even after having skipped it, which is like kind of an annoying thing to do. It's really easy to get bugs like on accident in SCX, and like big bugs as well on accident. So I think it's a difficult thing to do. It's the kind of thing I would only really have the sort of presence of mind to do in a serious PB attempt. Oh, that's unfortunate, Cap. Ooh, Max got my tights. And like basically zero nectar to work with here. That is really difficult. It is again totally fine because of how we play this split. Even while they're drinking nectar, the blue Pikmin are still technically in your party, so they're okay. They're not gonna like just mysteriously die on you. But this does mean that Curtis is pulled into the lead a little bit further here. Always rooting for the underdog, huh? Curtis has been ahead for a little while, so let's get him on the audio. Yeah, I wonder what kind of evil person would have done that. Shame on them, frankly. Fairly clean above grounds from both of them so far. Of course, Curtis is probably gonna be saving, small amounts of time here just because he's a little bit fresher on all the above grounds. Curtis is, of course, very good at most of the above grounds in this game. Enter SCX is one of his better ones, I think. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up saving, in the ballpark of like 3 to 5 seconds over Max in the split. You'll just win. Yeah, I would encourage you to try. Curtis getting those throws, which is super nice. But yeah, you can kind of tell that there is just like a very low level of mistakeage from Max in this split. Or not even mistakes, really, just like just very minor lack of urgency, I suppose I would say. And also just sort of invoke the urgency meme. Yeah, just rusty on above grounds. Me too, Jack. I'm not going to talk about my own PB too much, but it cinched it by a good amount, and it really should have cinched it by a lot more than it did. I had such a bad perplexing pool. It should have been 132. Yeah, the BLL was terrible. Nobody do BLL like I did BLL in my PB. So yeah, Curtis pulling ahead by a little bit more here, as expected. More than I thought he would, honestly. I think he's probably about 15 seconds ahead at this point. Let's see. He entered at like 12 seconds. When Max has entered at like 38 seconds. So that's a 26-second difference. Yeah, that's the above ground rust really sort of making it happen. Right, so Max is not getting mixed by the gauge here. Or wait, I didn't see if Curtis got mixed by the gauge. I don't think he did. Tape was in the stump room, right? So yeah, I think Curtis checked the stump room and then maybe went over there briefly. I was not watching Curtis' screen at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, I think this narrows the gap slightly. Oh no, Tape is there, so maybe Curtis didn't get mixed. Yeah, no, sorry. I sort of just like hallucinated Curtis misplaying in the corner of my vision, even though Curtis seems to have played perfectly fine. So Curtis has chosen to split on this layout, whereas Max is choosing not to split. Oh, and he's splitting here. That's very intriguing. I do really like his approach of just sort of go immediately, like, you know, don't worry about any of the details until you're sort of more sure of what the layout is doing. He's definitely saving some time from not having to look around at spawn. But we'll see if it ends up paying off for him. Also, yeah, I think being able to know an outgo from a cap on a CX1 is... it's something you should be able to do, I think. I wish I could see what was happening on this come down. Oh, that's interesting. So the gear is like weirdly close as the crow flies, but you have to go all the way around. Oh, this layout looks... ugh, dog water. This looks really bad, actually. Curtis spending kind of an awful lot of time getting those bugs. And dismissing his Pikmin into fire geysers. Oh my, oh, Jesus Christ. I thought Curtis was about to reset there. If that fire geyser hadn't broken the boulder, I think that would have killed like most of his purples. Oh, and he's getting Matites. So I don't know where... oh no, he's got all of his whites, that's fine. Max kind of struggling with the combat here a little bit. I mean, he's multitasking fairly well, and I'd say he's being a little bit more urgent than Curtis overall. But this is definitely... this is a hard one to play. This is just everything far in kind of a weird pattern. I honestly... so this is like a completely out-of-pocket play. I wouldn't have blamed anybody for just like throwing two purples, well, long throwing two purples over to the gear, like straight off of spawn. Just because, like, you know, if there is a bomb, then that gets the bomb started, and in this case there was the bomb started, so you don't have to wait for it when you get there. And both of our runners had pretty good purple counts, so I don't think that would have really been a problem for either of them. But if there was no bomb, then it starts the treasure moving like super early into the layout. And even though it's not going to get super far, it means that you can sort of distribute your whites on the other treasures a little bit more evenly. Both of our runners choosing to get whites here, which is definitely the play when you have a slow SEX3. It's basically free, right? Like, you're just waiting for the treasures to get in at a certain point, so growing these whites basically just means you have more whites for the rest of the run, or you can choose to skip one extra flower on the next floor. Sergeant, what do you mean by this? Yeah, Max definitely got some time back on that floor. I think just from sort of general urgency and not having issues with fire geysers and stuff like that. I think Curtis definitely had some like mechanical trouble on that SEX 3. So this layout is interesting. I very much respect Max going for growing all. Excuse me. I respect Max growing all three white candy pops here, as opposed to Curtis skipping one, just because, like, you know, you don't really need the extra whites, but it's almost free to grow them because this is like on the way to the hole anyway. So I think, like, you know, the odds that getting 5 extra whites saves more than the time it takes to grow them is very, very high. Again, just because there's a lot of floors in this game that are kind of bottlenecked on raw carry power. You know, I'm thinking like SCX7 to a certain extent, FC2, FC4 kind of. FC6 can be good if you're playing the floor there. FC7, of course, and then you have like COS3, etc. You know, there's a lot of situations where having the extra whites does still save time, even if you don't strictly need them. So I think it's like, I think it's really big. So Curtis, I think he missed Rimwalk, right? While I was busy chatting it up. Curtis dismissing the wrong type of Pikmin into the Poison Geyser once again. He's choosing to just C-stick. Whereas Max is now basically ahead at this point just because he's not screwing with the Poison Geysers too much. Really, like, you can't discount the mechanical elements of this game for sure. And it's not, Curtis is no slouch when it comes to mechanics, but Max has just turned, you know, being behind into being ahead, just purely based on mechanics. So, you know, it's significant, right? Like, it definitely makes a difference. Also, yeah, the backup whites in races is a huge deal for growing extras. Like, just having that freedom to not reset if you lose, like, 10. Which, you know, can easily happen. This game is incredibly mean. Ooh, this might be kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward for both of our runners, to be honest. This is just a really difficult situation. Max just barely clutches it through. Doesn't get dweevilled again. Yeah, the blow up and grab. That's so dweevills drop their treasure when they take like a certain amount of damage, I believe. You know, this is also true of Pikmin just like running up and hitting them. But bombs, of course, do damage to enemies, so it doesn't kill the dweevil, but it does make them drop it. Curtis checking where the hole is. I don't really know what Curtis is thinking right now. So, yeah, I would say kill Romeo in this situation where it is for Curtis. Max got a little bit luckier. Romeo is just, like, off in a meme hallway somewhere. I see why Curtis checked where the hole is, actually. This is a really strange layout, having all the treasures in the same place like this. Very, very unusual to see this. But this is hypothetically a very, very good layout. I don't think Max clocked where the hole is at spawn, so he's basically just going to have to book it. Whereas I believe Curtis left a captain, which is definitely the better play in this situation. However, Curtis is having a little bit more trouble with the loads here. But yeah, getting to the exit is definitely going to be the limiting factor. At least for Max, it's going to be... It was actually the treasures for Curtis, which is really surprising. Yeah, I suppose it's just because he had to finick with the load so much. That's, you know, it's another sort of like instance of the load of, you know, being able to cleanly load treasures the first time being like just an incredibly important skill in this game. Cannot be valued more highly, seriously. Like I kind of think like the difference between a lot of these runners in sort of the high level but not quite top level tier, I guess, is in, you know, stuff like how well do they load treasures and how cleanly do they do combat and stuff like that. It's all like, it's all small stuff. Small stuff that is actually big stuff. Why is Max going to Sunset? Oh man, did Max forget the route? Or did he do that on accident? He forgot. Oh, that's not good. So that's, oh, that's cost him. That's cost him so much time. No, no, it doesn't move our city back. So treasures that are buried or inside of an enemy, even partially buried counts, they will move back, but Ursidae is not buried or inside of an enemy, so it should stay where it is. It wouldn't stay where it is between cave trips if it was buried either. Yeah, that's really, really an unfortunate mistake for Max. It was so close before that point, but he really, like, that's, you know, 40 seconds of time loss. Oh, that's so sad. So I think Max, honestly, at this point, is really relying on Curtis to make a mistake of the same caliber. Max also choosing to do the El Clasico, oh god, just whites and purples in FC instead of bringing blues. I'm not 100% sure why. So Curtis starting off here, going straight in for the combat. That was a really clean load on that dig. Oh, and then he whistled some off. That's unfortunate. I think you just leave them on in that situation, personally. Curtis not quite focusing the dig as quickly as he should be. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. But I mean, again, this is still anybody's race, and yeah, as I was sort of expecting, this is gonna end up being slower. But yeah, it's still anybody's race. Curtis could make a mistake at any time. FC is a very volatile cave, so hopefully, well, I don't want to hope for Curtis's downfall here, but I already miss when this was so neck and neck. It's really, really unfortunate. Waiting for an opponent's wipe. Look, no, I'm not wishing for anybody's downfall. How about this? Instead of wishing for Curtis to make a mistake, which I'm not doing, but instead of that, um, I'm gonna hope for Max to just like absolutely cook on some layout where Curtis makes a, Curtis does a textbook play, but Max just like invents some, some Max 25 excellency, as he's prone to doing. Wouldn't be the first time he's just come up with something absolutely goated on the fly. So I'm hoping for him to do it again. That's a bit more optimistic, don't we think? Gets the super cookie. Now, that would be really funny if somehow our runners ended up needing Cookie for some reason, which they probably won't because they both have Lens. But if they needed Cookie and then Max banked on Cookie, because Curtis is always so mad, faux mad. I don't know if he's actually mad about it. Whenever Max banks on Cookie and gets bailed, it's quite funny. So Max is actually choosing to do a lot of combat here ahead of time, which I don't really like. Curtis, I think, played this much better, where he sort of brain is blanking, excuse me, where he sort of just ran past everything initially and went back and did the combat a little bit later. I think that's by far the faster way to play this. Yeah, that guy's gonna get eaten through the wall. Random statues grab, then a crazy skip, yeah. I could see it happening. Curtis is, I think, making this mistake again, where there's only like 7 whites on that dig. He did put 2 purples on it, which will make up for it somewhat, but that's gonna be pretty slow. It's this, oh my god, oh. Was that only 1 death? I think that was only 1 death. Definitely kind of sus, though. I think he needed to confirm the kill a little bit more on the bullbear. But yeah, now he's going to be waiting on the ring, which, is... It wouldn't happen if he just put the whites on it. And, I don't want to sort of beat a dead horse here, but if he had chosen to grow the extra whites on SCX4, then he could have just afforded to put like 15 whites on the ring and just eaten the losses if there's a bomb in the alcove. Which would have saved like really sort of non-trivial time for him in this situation. Because this is, it's only just now starting to move. You definitely don't want to be in this situation. This is not a nice way to lose time. I actually really like the way that Max is playing this. Put all of his Pikmin on ring immediately, and then just sort of threw a couple to the side to go to candle. Yeah, this is much, much better from Max. Making up his lead a lot. This is what I would consider to be, from Max, like a top runner FC3. This is what you want to see. Ooh, Curtis doing maybe a little bit too much combat here. Again, it's a race situation, so I totally don't fault him for this, but it's definitely not the fastest thing he could be doing. Yeah, and he's making the classic mistake of trying to mess with the snitch bugs too much, and this could cost him potentially a reset. No, he works it out, thankfully. But he is taking some chip damage here. It definitely seems like Max has his eyes on the prize a little bit more here. He's not dragging anywhere near as much. Still doing a lot of combat, which again, you know, it's a race situation. I totally respect that. Um, oh, but then he's not loading. Oh, no, he's getting snitch bugged. Okay, there's definitely a little bit of dragging here. And a lot of getting snitch bugged, like, man. Again, that's probably just the rust talking. You know, being able to sort of subconsciously dodge these snitch bugs is one of those skills that definitely needs to be consciously maintained, I think. And of course, being a little bit more rusty than Curtis is definitely not going to play to his favor here, but he really just needed to get the treasures moving sooner. Same deal with Curtis, he just needed to get the treasures moving a lot earlier into this floor. So yeah, hard to say if Max lost time compared to Curtis on this floor. They both sort of fumbled it quite a lot. I'm not going to repeat that message. But you're totally right though. They're definitely you know having amicable relationships with the snitch bugs on this floor. It's a little bit much, isn't it? So no statues, it looks like, which you know is fine, right? Statues would be insanely volatile in a run like this. Not that um not that our runners necessarily need it, because they have lens, and getting statues when you have lens already is a little bit of a weird situation. Max is not at the exit in time. You definitely don't want to be in this situation. Curtis going the wrong way on FC7. That's unfortunate. It definitely feels like both of our runners maybe are a little bit frazzled at the moment. I don't really know why Curtis would be frazzled, but you know, after making a mistake like Max made, I wouldn't be surprised if he's running on maybe a little bit of tilt or just a little bit of like, you know, just like thrown out of his groove a little bit. It happens to the best of us, like no matter how solid your mental game, you can still just get like completely thrown out of it. So Curtis had to do a little bit of searching for this treasure, which is fine, but it's the kind of thing that I think you should be able to tell from a gauge read fairly easily, or at least a little bit sooner than he ended up noticing it. Max is taking a much more direct line to these treasures. Ooh, I think having gotten the stun in that situation, I think it's probably best to just leave the Bulborb and start loading the treasure a little bit earlier. Ooh, Max losing a couple purples there, which is totally okay. Both of our runners have really good purple numbers at this point, so that's not going to sting too much. But it is a very slight chip. Max really should swap these, yes. So yeah, this is kind of what I mean about the extra whites. Kind of just like slowly saving time. Like being able to max load the yo-yo with all whites is just like crazy. Because it has so far to move. I think Max is definitely saving like maybe a good 10 seconds on Curtis in this floor. I, you know, haven't been timing it in my head, but it definitely feels like he played it about 10 seconds faster overall than Curtis did. Unfortunately, no FC7 space program today. So both of our runners entering the final stretch of the run, both very, very healthy in their Poke numbers. They don't have to really farm at all for the rest of the run, basically. Like, they can comfortably skip Aquatic Mine and pretty much every other bug in the run. Yeah, these are some absolutely silly Poke numbers. This seed is really, really good for bugs. And both of our runners have been kind of going crazy on the bug collection as well. Which, I mean, you know, strictly speaking, if I was going to nitpick this, I think you kind of have to realize once you have just like a boatload of bugs and tone it down a little bit, you know, be a little bit less aggressive about it. I do kind of get it in a race. You know, you're just thinking like, yeah, just get all the bugs, just be comfortable with it. Don't worry too hard. But you can definitely go over on bugs, and bug collection is not always free. Curtis getting body blocked by basically everything on COS1, as is tradition. Apologies, by the way, if you end up hearing any like weird water sounds. My boiler is quite close to my computer right now, and it always is. But it was having issues yesterday, and it is making a lot of weird noises at the moment. So if those show up on the stream, I'm sorry about that. No sounds. Good to hear. TC for BLL. Yeah, with bugs this high, that honestly is doable. Something cute on GK3. Interesting. No, I don't think GK3 is ever really good for a skip. Just the way it generates, it's almost never a good skipping floor, I think. Cookie highway goodness. That would be a hell of a thing to go for. I do not respect this. I've been saying a lot of times this stream, like, oh yeah, I respect this play. I do not respect that play. If you do that play and you get bailed, know that you are Satan's child. You are only doing the devil's deeds. $8,200 exiting VR? Jesus. Oh, oh, Curtis. Curtis, be careful. Okay, he's fine. That's a very easy thing to do, is just throw a purple at an anode, but then it sort of sparks up in a way that gets you. Ugh, bad. Alright, that's fine. But yeah, no, that's definitely an overfarm, for sure. Max choosing to take the meme hallway. I don't think that was correct. I don't think you do that. I think it's probably immediately realized that you don't do that, but you know, sometimes you gotta make bold plays. Max is definitely known for making bold plays, for sure. I am so sorry. I was talking for a couple of minutes and I was muted. Been muting to cough or something like that every once in a while, but yeah, I was saying I prefer Max's treasure order for COS 3 just because the can is usually so slow. Ooh, Curtis almost getting Sunny Cycle here. Really good BLL from Curtis. You love to see that. Boiler exploded? No, if Boiler exploded, I think the stream would be down. Because, like, literally, Jack, I mean, you know what this room looks like. Imagine where my desktop computer is. It's literally, like, in the wall, right behind it. Like, the boiler is, like, less than a meter from my computer. So if the boiler exploded, you know, there would be, like, electrical fires happening. You know, it would not be good. So let's see if Max can get an equally good BLL. No Sunny Cycle. Oh, but he gets Shakeless. Which is just about as fast, if not slightly faster. Well, so Curtis's one was 2 steps with a shake. If he had gotten 0 steps and 0 shake, which is like the full Sunny Cycle, then of course that is much faster than Shakeless, but I think they both ended up having about the same time for a BLL kill. Kept crying his eyes out. Yeah, I mean, so the new BLL setup, it's a good setup. I really like it. I tried it a few times in practice, and I think it's pretty good. After I got my current PB, because I screwed up BLL in my current PB. I'm not going to talk about it. It's a good setup. I really like the setup. It is, however, not the fastest thing to do. Like, it's... What is going on here on Curtis's scales? I'm quite confused by this. But yeah, so getting Sunny Cycle is faster than getting Shakeless in the way that Cap setup gets. So I think it's a good setup for like consistency. It'd be good to learn for races and stuff like that, but I'm personally not going to use it in PB attempts. I'm sorry, Cap. You put in the work, and I very much respect the work, but it's not for me. So I didn't catch Curtis's Poke numbers, or Max's for that matter, but I would imagine both of them are very, very healthy at the moment. No, people BL'd good, but nobody did your setup. So, still a fairly close race. I would say Max has honestly closed the gap slightly. Since his mishap. Curtis doing monkey throws for fun. Yeah, Max has probably closed the gap very slightly, but still quite a bit behind. It would take, you know, Curtis messing up monkey throws or something like that, or walkies. Like, really serious walkies on Giant Bread Bug from Curtis in order to make this possible for Max to win, I think. So it's going to be about a minute between the two of them, I think. Curtis going for a really risky Electric Gate kill. It worked out, but he's kind of left half of his squad in a weird spot. Oh, is this an instant bread bug? This is an instant bread bug. That's really unfortunate. Of course, that also basically guarantees that Max is going to get this as well, so it's not, you know, this doesn't swing the race necessarily unless Max gets insanely lucky for some reason and doesn't get the instant bread bug. So he's realized that he's getting instant bread bugged. He did the low cam. See if he can. Nope, he got bread bugged. Okay, so that's not a swing. Man, Blissif here is not cooperating either. This is definitely a bad spot for it to happen. Ooh, Curtis taking some deaths. Oh, sorry, I just realized both streams are also playing audio. Max did try, but unfortunately Blissif was on top of the xylophone for him. Which, it's super dumb, but the way that flying enemies work in this game is they float like a fixed distance above the ground that they're on top of. So that means Blissif is a little bit higher up than usual. Ooh, Max could be losing some purples here. I think Blissif just shook a bunch of them off right onto an electric hazard. Overall, slightly cleaner play from Max on this floor, just because he didn't have to chase the bread bug for quite as long. Has closed the gap a little bit, but not enough. Curtis knows he doesn't have to care about that body, which is very good to see. And he gets the Moke through. Oh, 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 he whistled down. Oh no. Oh, this is really rough for Curtis. Hopefully he can get his Moke throws again in time, but that's a really, really unfortunate mistake to make. Also, yeah, it looks like Max did lose some purples. He is quite low all of a sudden. But yeah, Max going for the feeding the bull bear play. Just because he has so many whites, this is something he can really afford to do. So yeah, he's been doing Moke throws like since the very beginning of this floor, which is huge for him. The spread bug is going somewhere. Don't know where. But yeah, so he basically got to doing the limiting thing so much faster than Curtis did. Looks like Curtis did, in fact, finish his Moke throws again. But yeah, this is gonna close the gap actually quite significantly, I think. Max really played this floor so much more urgently than Curtis did. The gambit would have worked. You're right. You're right. But neither of them went for it. Which, again, that's correct. You should not go for this gambit. It's a bad gambit to go for. But yeah, the difference is now down from like a minute down to about maybe 30 seconds. So this is firmly within the territory where walkies could become the deciding factor. Oh, and Curtis getting the GK5 special. I actually kind of disagree with these loads from Curtis as well. When the party hat is this close, I think you don't actually need to load it with 15 whites. And I think you did sort of adjust a little bit there, but you really want a lot of whites on the antenna in this situation, just because antenna is so slow. This is, again, another floor that benefits very, very heavily from having extra whites. Did Curtis need those 10 Pokos? No, no. Both of our runners have been very, very high on Pokos for most of this run. And they both had lens as well, so they didn't have to farm bugs quite as hard. So Max again closing very slightly by virtue of not having to deal with Matites. Excuse me. So Curtis is going straight in for the ham. choosing not to kill any of these guys. So we haven't seen GBB yet. He might have gotten very unlucky. Okay, no, GBB is there. Right, so this is looking like a pretty much in the bag run for Curtis. Max choosing to do a little bit of extra combat. He definitely doesn't need the bugs. Oh, but GBB is a little bit more cooperative. This could be a slightly better cycle for Max's GBB, but I don't think it's enough to make up the difference. Oh, don't get bread bugged, don't get bread bugged. Oh, Max got bread bugged. That seals it. That's really unfortunate. And Curtis is able to close out Giant Bread Bug pretty cleanly. Dang. And let's remember that Max accidentally left Valley of Repose early in this run. So seriously good showing from Max. Like this has been an incredibly close run. Even with all the things that have happened. Uh-oh. But yeah, Max unfortunately does need that extra treasure, so he's gonna have to go and hunt down this red bug. Any big time losses from Curtis? Nothing really that big. I mean, he misplayed some floors, in my opinion. But he didn't make any, you know, he hasn't reset or anything like that. So no, just some general sort of dragging here and there. GG to Curtis. So Curtis will be advancing in the bracket. Should make sure I have the bracket up. Hey Curtis, welcome.
That was like the worst seed I've played in a long time.
It was a pretty hard seed, I'm not gonna lie. So you have won by about a minute, I think.
Yeah, I figured that would be close because I was getting to perplexing pool and I was like, the floors are still bad and I'm misplaying a little bit, so and I didn't know where Max was.
So here's the kicker. Max accidentally left VOR after SCX. So he lost like 40 seconds to a mistake. So this was a really incredibly close run for like the entire thing. Like
I wonder if he
absolutely.
still would have won if he didn't do that.
Yeah, I wonder. He was making a lot of really good, really smart plays. But then just had like a few sort of bigger time losses, whereas I think you made smaller but more consistent mistakes overall. Like you should absolutely study this one afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely think my blunders were more spread out, but not too big this race.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's see if Max wants to join the commentary channel.
I can count on like one hand the amount of floors that were good in this race.
Yeah, definitely not that many. But yeah, huge GG's. Would be nice if we could get Max in for the comms, but it's totally okay if not. So the result of this race is that Curtis is advancing and will be versus Jack
Oh
in
God.
round 3. 07. to one of you. You know, it
Yeah,
could go
I'm
either way.
going to losers.
Max is ill, so Max will not be
Unfortunate.
joining commentary. But yeah, no, seriously, excellent, excellent performance from both of our runners here. Very hard seed, but very, very close race the whole way through. Just like absolutely stellar run. Like you just love to see them this close. It's one of my favorite things from these tournaments is seeing runners who are so closely matched in skill get to duke it out like this.
Yeah, I think out of all the potential races that could have happened throughout the tournament, this is probably one of the closest ones.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of like, just like runner skill level in general. All right, so in service of giving my voice a rest because I've been chatting to myself for almost 2 hours now. I think we're gonna call it here. The very next race that's happening is Rixoro versus Under the Bed, aka Maya. So this was supposed to happen yesterday. I'm sorry if anybody was looking forward to that. I was supposed to be restreaming that, but the aforementioned boiler issues happened, so that had to be moved. So that race is starting tomorrow at 9 p.m. British Summer Time, which I believe is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time, sorry. So definitely join the Pikmin Speedrunning Discord to see an event for that. You know, it gives you the time and the link and everything, and we're going to announce it in there as well. Once it's starting, that is. So look forward to that. Look forward to the next runs from Curtis and Max. Oh, I should say who Max is going to fight next. Max is versus Heartpiece in Losers Round 2.
Ooh.
So that's going to
You
be a
should
great run
do
to
it
watch.
on PAL for the meme. Like
Ooh,
both of them.
that would be fun. Yeah, definitely check out Heartpiece. He always runs the game on PAL, so the treasure route is a little bit different. You can see some interesting, spicy things like COS skip, potentially. But yeah, we're going to call it there. Thank you for watching, everybody. Make sure to tune in to future races. And of course, check out the bracket, which I've posted in chat. And have a good evening.